Welcome to a little
Old
flashback,
school.
old
Old
school,
school. Look at this.
first time ever podcast of Under the Radar. This was it. It was me and Griggs, and here we are, old school
Yeah, don't
fashion
go
Under the
back and
Radar.
watch the first ever episode.
Oh,
We
it
need
was
to take
bad.
that down. Yeah,
We
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 didn't know
really
what we were
should.
doing. Yeah.
I didn't even have a haircut that day. My camera
Yeah.
was all fuzzy, and uh,
I was sitting here with no pants. I mean, it was very embarrassing.
please no, please no. This is our Under the Radar podcast. I'm Chad Sherwood. He's David Griggs. And this is our podcast where we review every team that is not in what we consider to be a multi-bid conference.
Right.
So we're not talking about the ACC. We're not talking to where Louisville just picked up a road win. We're not
Yeah.
talking about the SEC where Tennessee just lost. We're
Yeah.
not talking about the Big 12 where Kansas just lost. We're not talking about the American where we're not talking about what other conference? The
Yeah.
Big 10 where Purdue lost. None of that. None of that.
Yeah, we were talking just before we came on the air about what an amazing week it's going to be. You're not going to want to miss tomorrow's show when we do the bracket because holy crap, is there much to discuss. But we're discussing none of that tonight. Not one bit of it.
Yeah, none of those 10 conferences that we consider to be regular multi-bid conferences are covered on this show. Also,
Yeah.
any team that in and of itself is in the top 25 of either of the polls, we also consider not to be under the radar. James Madison had been there all year until this week.
Yeah,
They're back under the radar. Welcome back to JMU. And so everybody in these conferences is fair game now.
they are.
And what we actually like to do with these shows is start out with what I call a feature conference. Um, and before we go through the rest of them in alphabetical order, and Griggs, last week and last couple of weeks we've been talking up the Big Sky Summit League challenge that happened over the course of the past week here.
Yeah, yeah,
And and we talked about one of the neat ways that it worked is there's actually a trophy involved for this challenge series for the conference that wins. And the way
yeah,
that it was scored was not just which conference wins more games, but they had a unique scoring system where if you for every win at home, your conference gets 1 point. For every road win, you get 1.5 points.
yeah.
And if somehow and it included 18 men's and 18 women's games.
So it was,
And
there's
if
36 games. Yeah,
36
with a
games,
total of what is that? 54 total points if you went undefeated. If I did the math right. No,
well,
no,
no,
that
no,
would
it
mean
could be more
yeah,
even
yeah,
because you get 1.5 point for the road win.
yeah,
So I don't even know what the math was, but they had a
yeah.
couple tiebreakers. What if it ends up being tied between after the points are scored? What happens next? They go to the first tiebreaker is total points, all games combined. Second tiebreaker is an arm wrestling contest between the two conference commissioners at the Final Four. True story. We're
Yes,
not making this up.
yeah.
Uh, well, on the men's side, it was a blowout in terms of overall games. This Big Sky took it 11-7 overall.
I'm
Uh,
surprised it was even that close. I
I
didn't
don't,
realize.
that doesn't include the extra half points, but in terms of just raw wins,
Okay, yeah, just
11
games.
out of 18 games went to the Big Sky. However, when we then factor in the women's games and the bonus half points and everything, we ended up with a dead tie,
Wow,
21.5 to 21.5 points per
that is
conference.
amazing. So we're gonna get our arm wrestling match.
Unfortunately, there was another tiebreaker before that. It was
No.
points, and here it is. Here's the final results. 2,654 to 2,552. We do not get the arm wrestling contest, but congratulations to the Summit League, champions of the Big Sky Summit League Challenge, despite the men's getting trounced 11-7.
You really had to stretch to feature the Summit League. It's normally a league that we love, the Dakotas, like the four Dakota schools. It's
It
got
won
good
a
rank.
championship. It already has a trophy this year.
Yeah, sort of.
Uh,
Well, good, thanks to the women.
thanks to the
Um,
women. Thanks to a huge part to the women, honestly.
yeah. So a conference that we normally like and that really deserves to get more, attention than what it does, did a couple things. This year. And by a couple, I mean two. I'll mention them both real quick. One is that they put the league behind a paywall, which means even fewer people can watch it. Only people like you and I can see it.
Yeah, you
And
got
the
to
second,
subscribe to the Summit League Network to see any of their
right,
non-televised games,
yeah,
or
that was the
non-locally
first thing they
televised games.
did.
Yeah.
to hurt their exposure. The second thing they did, Chad, is that they played bad basketball all year long so far.
That's been the bigger sin of the two, I
Yeah,
think, honestly. If you look at this, there's one team that's been playing great basketball all season. They are ineligible for the postseason. It is the
yeah,
St. Thomas Tommies. The rest of the conference here, there's not a winning D1 record in the league. Uh,
right.
uh, South Dakota State, who we liked a lot heading into the season. Uh,
Has been really disappointing. Oral Roberts, who has been so good the last couple years, not good this year. But let's talk about St. Thomas. Since we're featuring the league, it's normally a team we don't discuss for the obvious reason of them not being eligible. But as a transitional program, that is a rough experience. Like that's a rough process no matter who you are. But we thought it would be exceptionally rough for them because they went from 3-1, not 2-1. I'm talking Division 3 to Division 1, and it was a 5-year window, which would make you think that it would take them even longer to get the train on the track and recruit D1 caliber players and be competitive. And Chad, you and I've been doing this a while. Don't go back to when we first started doing this, like we said, but we've been doing this a while, and we followed some of these transitional programs. And you and I both kind of know the second and third year of the transition is when, oh man, it gets rough.
yeah,
This is the third year of a 5-year transition. And is this the best transitional program? All joking aside, since North Dakota State came up with 10 miles and had the wins against Marquette and Wisconsin and had 20 win seasons as a transitional program, is it the
well,
best one we've seen since we started doing this show?
look on the left side of the screen here. I've got their
Yeah,
profile up. I mean, not that you're going to look at them for an NCAA tournament, but look at the loss column. Only 5 points they lost to Marquette. 5 points they lost to
yeah,
Cal. 4 points their Cal Baptist lost. 1 point the Cal Poly lost. Only one double-digit loss among their five losses there. That game at Green Bay. Every other game they won, including against a pretty good Portland State team by under the radar standards. Uh,
yeah.
and this team, yes, I agree with you. This team has played excellent all season, and I think that this team, as we go back to the standings here, I think you're going to see this team at the top of the standings at the end of the season.
I think
I
you
th-
will.
that they are eligible to play in the Summit League tournament. I think you're going to see them cutting down the nets in the Summit League tournament, and you're going to see the loser of that conference title game, or however the tiebreakers are worked there in the Summit League, actually getting the auto bid. It will have, like we had with Fairleigh Dickinson last year, a
Yeah,
team losing and yet still getting an automatic bid. Uh,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
Real,
we,
real
we know
climactic
we
there.
know that worked out awful for FDU in last year's tournament. They were just
Yeah,
boat raced out of the building, right?
right.
Or maybe
Yeah.
not.
In the round of 32, they kind of were by
They,
Florida Atlantic. Yeah,
yes, they were. Yeah, Florida Atlantic had their number in the round of third. But the team that I think we probably have a two-team race though for the auto bid between South Dakota State and Denver this year. Denver's a team that we've mentioned a few times. Every single year, it seems we seem to want to. For years, you and I both were
yeah,
on the Denver bandwagon the
yeah.
preseason and watched them finish seventh, eighth, ninth place every year.
Right. Every October for many years in a row, you and I were like, "Oh, Denver, they got it going, the Pioneers," and they never got it going. But maybe they do this year. It's been a long NCAA tournament drought. I think they've been, but it
Uh,
has not been recently.
no, they have never been to the
They've
NCAA
never
tournament.
been. Wow. Okay. I think they back in the Sun Belt days, which was a long time ago. I think they got to the championship game one year. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, or maybe
Yeah.
they did. I don't know. But the Tommies kind of a good story, not just for the Summit League, but for college basketball under the radar in general. To see a transitional team that's coming up from Division 3 having this kind of success this soon.
Right. But here's the upcoming schedule, and the Tommies are hosting South Dakota State, who, like we said, with Denver, the battle. But maybe the battle for the auto bid actually maybe starts this Saturday with the fascinating South Dakota State at Denver
At
game.
Denver, yeah, and
Uh,
yeah.
that's
So tune into that one if you have the paywall.
if yeah, you're gonna have to get through the paywall, or
Yeah,
maybe if you live in Denver, maybe on local TV. So
yeah,
good luck with that. But there we go, Grace. We found a way to feature the Summit League. We always like to
yes,
feature them once each season, and but again, they won a trophy. Unfortunately for them, This is not the trophy.
Oh, that would be the perfect trophy for the Summit League.
Oh, jeez. Okay. America East time. Let's go through the rest of these conferences here,
Yeah.
where we've got four teams out to 1-0 starts. Just getting to conference play. Binghamton hasn't even played a game yet, but I think as is every year, this probably is going to be Vermont's league to win.
I think so. I think Lowell might be good enough. I don't think they're as good as Vermont, but they might be good enough to where they're better than everybody else to where they can kind of keep pace with Vermont. So there'll be some semblance of a race. And then who knows if they really hit everything right, they can get them at home or something. But yeah, I agree with you that Vermont is probably the best team and the most likely front runner, and the team that's built the best to perhaps contend to win a game in the round of 64. Their opener at home against a team that we've normally seen on the bottom, but that's much improved this year. And how about Maine kind of hanging in that game?
Maybe in that game, but I will tell you though, I was impressed with what Lowell did. I'd been liking the way New Hampshire had been playing heading into conference play. Lowell
Yeah,
went on the road and won at New Hampshire, so
yeah,
that was somewhat impressive. That's a good sign from Lowell. Lowell this week is going to be hosting NJIT and UMBC.
should know
Vermont
both
will
of
be
those.
hosting the same two teams as well. I guess they're travel partners
I
here.
guess they are. I did not know that, but I guess they are.
At least for the week, they're travel
Yeah,
partners. New Hampshire at Maine. That's the game I'm going to circle tomorrow night. New
right.
Hampshire
Yeah,
at
New
Maine.
Hampshire
Highlighted game of the week in
at
the
Maine.
America East.
I mean, given the week, couple days that we've had, well,
Well, you don't get further up in the northeast corner of the United States than these two teams. So,
yeah, you don't. Yeah, New Hampshire.
uh, uh, ASUN
Oh,
conference.
oh, oh,
Where
oh,
what have we got here? We've got Kennesaw actually picked up Kennesaw and Queens knocked off Florida Gulf Coast this week after Gulf Coast had beaten Florida Atlantic a few weeks back. But
yeah,
and Kennesaw beat Stetson. Uh, and Griggs, I gotta tell you here, your preseason pick to win this league was Eastern Kentucky. They
yeah,
absolutely were atrocious non-conference. Here
abs,
they out
yeah,
now to a 2-0 start though, including the big win last week over Lipscomb at home.
yeah. And I was ready to surrender it at the beginning of the year. I thought it was going to be a two-horse race between Lipscomb and Eastern Kentucky. I switched to thinking it was going to be a two-horse race between Kennesaw and Lipscomb, and now Lipscomb loses to Eastern Kentucky, who coincidentally is tied with Kennesaw in the conference standings. But EKU was so disappointing. I know that was a nice win for them, and I know like conference play sort of resets it, but they're going to have to do more than that to make me think they're not bad. And part of that might be because I had such high expectations for them in November and December, and they just were not good. But I still think Lipscomb and Kennesaw are the two best teams that I've seen out of this league. A slight shout out to never to Jacksonville. I know that they're off to an 0-2 start, but at least they were kind of solid out of conference.
EKU, they get to go. They're on the road this week at Central Arkansas, at North Alabama. If they're 4-0 next week, I'm paying attention. I'm paying serious
Yeah,
attention to this team in this conference. The big game of the week, though, Friday night, Jacksonville at North Florida.
North Florida. Yeah,
Huge in-city rivalry there.
yeah, it is.
What's the name of that one? Uh,
What is the name of that one? I should
oh,
know that.
there's a good name for that
Oh
one.
my God, what is it? We got to. Oh, geez, where's Stalika when you need him?
Somebody gets Stalika here
No,
to
it
give us
has.
the name of this.
It's not the Battle of the Boulevard. It's not that cool. But no, it does have. Is it
This is the River City
the?
Rumble, by the way.
Yeah, the River City Rumble.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm not sharp today. Yeah, and I can't even convince our audience that that's one of our favorite rivalries. It is, even though we couldn't remember the name of it. Yeah,
River City Rivalry. It's always a good game. It should be a good one this year.
yeah,
Something to watch Friday night. There's not
yeah,
that much action on most Friday nights. Uh, Big Sky. This was our champion of the Big Sky Summit League Challenge Series,
yeah.
and Weber State now off to a 2-0 start. Uh, and they're not playing conference games this week actually with the they're waiting for Oral Roberts in the on Saturday in the Challenge Series, but
Yeah, they're starting to look like Weber State. If you pull them up, I do think that there's a gap between them and the rest of the league. I still think Eastern Washington is coming on strong. And I know that not all of the wins have been big, but what is it? 6 in a row, 7 in a row now. They're starting to play the way we expected them to early in the year, and kind of like the way that they did when they won. Was it at St. Mary's, I think?
Yes.
But I'm not seeing. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's right in tier one. I'm not used to looking up that high on the end of the radar.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
and I agree with you. This Weber State team, Eastern Washington off to a good start. I still think Montana's going to be heard from before this league season is over.
yeah.
Portland State's the team that's kind of starting to fall apart after they had a good start to the season.
Yeah,
So
and that was a really good story. We weren't expecting much from them, and they were out of the gate and really impressive. But yeah, I agree. They're starting to come down to earth a little bit. And Idaho, it's just the emotion from that Wazoo opener. They just haven't been able to kind of get their legs back under them.
uh, Weber State at Portland State is probably the game of the week this week, though, on
Yeah, I would
Saturday.
say
If
so.
Portland State's going to turn things around and get back in this, they're hosting Idaho State Thursday night, then hosting Weber State here on Saturday. So 2-0 week, and we're going to be back on that Portland State bandwagon next week, I think.
Yeah, that
Uh,
that would, if they get those two, yeah.
Big South Conference. We saw High Point. Were they down here? Or they're up big, and then
They
they
were
held on
up.
against Asheville tonight.
They were up.
Yes.
I don't want to say big. To say they were blowing them out would be overstating it. But they were. At no point did it feel like that they were not in control of that game until I turned it over and then was checking scores and was like, "Holy crap! It's a 1 point game." I texted you or you texted me after. Well, we were both texting, and I don't know what happened, but they did hold on the win. Asheville, of course, the team that we liked coming into the year, especially like their post player, probably the best player in the conference. But High Point has looked the best since the season started, and that was they did hold on the win, and I think they're the best team in the league.
And you're talking Drew Pember there for
Yeah,
UNC
Drew
Asheville,
Pember, thank you.
by the
Yeah,
way. Yes,
did I
but
not say that?
I think we could have three. Maybe I don't know that Longwood hangs in there, but I think High Point, Winthrop, Asheville. We've got an interesting season ahead here in the Big South.
Yeah,
Winthrop got a pair of road wins, against the bottom of the conference, but you've got to pick up those road wins, and they're never easy to do. They had to go to
right.
overtime to beat Upstate, but there they are sitting there at 3-0 now in league play as well. So I
Yeah,
kind of like this Winthrop team. And uh, actually, we've got Radford at Longwood tomorrow night. And then
yeah.
let's see, there's the rest of the games coming
Longwood
up
at
this week.
Asheville could be
Yeah.
kind of interesting. I know Longwood had the big out of conference record, but I mean they didn't. I mean they were playing some pretty weak competition, but still a team to pay attention to. And if they go to Asheville and win, that's a really good win.
Right.
High Point
Uh,
won the Frisbee. Yeah,
other than that, next is still a week away, but next week Asheville is at Winthrop. These may be the two best teams in the conference playing head to head here. So keep an eye on that one. Of course, High Point's still in that conversation also.
yeah,
Let's keep things rolling along to the Big West Conference, where UC Irvine did went 2-0 at home. Did not roll in either one of the games. They needed overtime to beat UC Davis, but here they are at 4-0 and on top of the conference where we thought they would be.
yeah. And again, starting to look like the way that we thought the Eaters were after a little bit of a dip. And again, I think they've won 5 or 6 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. And
Sitting at 4 right now.
Yeah, okay, it's at okay 4, which is one less than 5 or 6, I suppose. But a big game this week. It's not easy going out to Hawaii. I mean, even when Hawaii is average, they're still really tough to beat at home. And that's probably the game of the week in the conference.
It probably is. We are still keeping an eye on this Cal State Northridge team. How about a 7-game win streak for the Matadors there? And they've got some fairly easy tests ahead, honestly. You road tests at UC Davis this week. UC Davis has had a little bit of life, but not a lot. Um, and I think we got to give a shout out to UC San Diego after a 3-0 conference start.
Yeah,
One of the in their final year of transition
yeah. Final year of
for the
transitioning.
Tritons.
And they've had some good moments. They nearly beat San Diego State. So their their future, I think they're going to step right into it next year. In fact, they're already a D1 caliber team. Beach, of course, you always got to keep an eye on them, but
Yeah.
I just think Irvine's better, the better half of the black and blue rivalry.
And if you go with Irvine at Hawaii as your game of the week, the second best game of the week, maybe also tomorrow night, Thursday night, Long Beach at
Yeah.
UC San Diego there.
Hmm.
So keep an eye on that one as well. Uh, Keeping things rolling right along here, Coastal Athletic Association, where I got to give a huge shout out here to the College of Charleston. Great week with a win
Oh
at
yeah.
Hofstra, followed by a win at Stony Brook, a pair of road wins out to a 2-0 start. They now have the best metrics in the conference.
Yeah.
And while we haven't talked about a ton this year, I think this may be the team to beat in the Coastal at this point, Griggs.
I think it is, and I mean they certainly were last year. Pat Kelsey has done a phenomenal job there, and they're once again strong. That win at Hofstra was a really solid win. I think if they can go there and win, they can go anywhere in this league and win. It is a little better than it was last year, but that was solid. And Wilmington, a team that we were big on at one point, is kind of coming back down to earth. I see you getting their profile there. Ever since beating Kentucky, they really have not capitalized on that.
Yeah, now 0-2 in conference, a
Yeah.
three-game losing streak. They started off a little bit rough with a pair of road games in conference at Drexel and at Towson, but you got to at least split those,
You
really.
got to at least split them. And if you're talking at large, which once when they beat Kentucky, we were thinking that we're like, this is an experienced team. They're one of the older teams, not just in the country but in the nation. They can handle these road games, and they didn't in their conference openers. But Charleston, you start to look the win at Hofstra, the neutral floor against Liberty, who's so. We'll get to them in a little bit, but they're just looking really good. They're noticeably better now than they were in some of those earlier season losses.
Agreed. Drexel also out to 3-0 start, Monmouth out to 2-0 start. I think those are more products of their schedules
I
than.
think so too.
But Charleston this week, they've got a pair of home games. They're hosting Lon and they're hosting Monmouth. So if Monmouth has anything,
Yeah,
maybe that's their game of the week there on Saturday, Monmouth at Charleston.
yeah, it could be. I think Charleston wins though.
I agree with you. Uh,
Yeah.
Keep an eye on this Delaware UNC Wilmington Delaware team. I'm still keeping an eye on Wilmington. We're still keeping an eye on, uh, but they can't let Charleston start running away with this league either. These teams have to
Yeah.
start beating Charleston and finding a way to stay keep pace as well.
Yeah.
Uh, Conference USA. Uh,
Oof.
this was a league
Oof.
we were on the Liberty bandwagon. Here they are 0-2
Yeah.
in Conference USA. We were on the Louisiana Tech bandwagon. Here they are 0-1 in Conference USA. I was just starting to get into the Western Kentucky bandwagon. And tonight they go lose a game at Sam Houston. Uh,
Which is a head scratcher.
I guess it was a road game, but at this
Yeah.
point, Liberty lost a home game to Jacksonville State. Louisiana Tech also lost at Sam Houston. Griggs, is it time to get on the Bearcat bandwagon? Let's go, Sam Houston. They've just
Well,
beaten two of the
yeah.
best teams in the conference in the
Well, yeah,
past week.
granted they were both at home, but you're right. They did beat La Tech and they did beat Western Kentucky, and maybe it is, at least when you just look at league play in and of itself, maybe they are the team. And real kind of disappointing. Even teams that looked like they showed signs of life in out of conference play have sort of limped at least out of the starting gate of conference play.
Yeah, this conference, we had talked about at-large possibilities. I think those are all completely gone
Yeah,
for this league
well,
at this
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Uh, we are at a single big conference USA, maybe looking at a 13 line, maybe looking at a 14 line if things don't go well.
I
Uh,
think so too. Yeah,
it's just, it's been, uh, I
yeah,
don't know what else to say. We do have a very interesting game on Saturday. Jacksonville State's at Western Kentucky, so and then also Liberty at Louisiana Tech. That would have been a highlight game. It should have been the two undefeated teams. Instead, it could be two teams looking for their first conference win if La Tech can't win on Thursday night at Middle Tennessee. So
yeah. Oh,
it's very
oh,
disappointing so far.
yeah.
What's happened to Conference USA, since the
Right.
calendar
Especially
turned.
after this year. Last year they had a team in the Final Four.
They did have a team in the Final Four last year. Team's no
Yeah,
longer in the conference, but
and
yes,
the
they
team's no
did.
longer in the league. Yeah.
Uh, Griggs, how about the Horizon League, where uh,
Um,
where the whole
what are the
Fort
yeah.
Wayne story just collapsed in and on itself with back-to-back losses at home to
Yeah.
Wright State, followed by tonight at Youngstown State, and suddenly we have
A log jam
seven
of
teams on the tide of the loss column, and there they are.
in an eighth in Northern Kentucky, right behind that. We are 7 games into the year, and 8 of the 11 teams are separated by 1 game, albeit in the loss column. But it's not like, I mean, no one's played fewer than 6, and no one's played. Well, Milwaukee has, but that is a log jam. And Purdue Fort Wayne, I still like them the most, but God, they did not have it. They just did not look good at all in their
No,
last game.
yeah, the last two games that they faltered, and you have been on the Penguin Fever bandwagon. I think it might be time to get that Penguin Fever.
Yeah, it's time to fire up Penguin Fever again.
But but very quietly, Oakland, after a rough start in early conference play, is in there now in the tie for the league lead as well. So we gotta give a shout out there to Greg
yeah,
Campy's team because I think Oakland
yeah,
is
Greg
right
Campy and the
back.
Grizz, his 29th season with the Grizz on the blacktop, and you had kind of called it coming in. I had totally written them off, but yeah, since league play has started, right now they're looking as good as anyone. Well, granted, everyone is looking as good as anyone.
Everyone's looking as good as anyone. And in terms of games to circle, you may want to just circle the entire slate here
Yeah,
because there are every game is now suddenly important other than maybe anything that Detroit Mercy is doing. Um,
yeah.
and
Wright State at Youngstown is a really good game. Oakland, a real winnable game at IUPUI to kind of keep themselves in the mix. But yeah, and then how about Youngstown at Oakland next week? Ooh, that's a big one.
that's a big one. How about Cleveland State Green Bay on Sunday? That's a big one if you look at the
Yeah,
standings here.
yeah.
And, um, I got to give a quick shout out to Detroit Mercy. Oh, how things change when you lose the second greatest best scorer in NCAA
They weren't
history.
that good when they had him.
Uh, Only team in D1 without a win at all. Although there are a few
Yeah.
other teams that have only have non D1 wins. Not a single win on the season, and in control of their own destiny. Destiny, I'd say, for winning our Centenary
Sitting
Award for
there.
the worst team in
Yeah.
D1.
Well,
Rough season for Mike Davis's team there.
yes, yes, it really is. Such a nice guy.
Uh, Over in the Ivy League,
Yeah,
uh, we finally got conference play started here. Princeton and Cornell both picked up wins in their conference openers.
wow.
And they are look like the two teams here. But Yale picked up the win at Brown. Penn picked up the
Yeah.
win over Dartmouth. Uh, I think the
Yeah,
most impressive was the way Princeton beat Harvard. It just blew
well,
them out of the building.
that's what I was going to say because this was a Harvard team that had shown signs of being able to play at least having a pulse, and Princeton pounded them. And when you start to pull up Princeton, they're finally starting to get a little bit of traction. I see they're ranked 47. I can't believe that many teams even got votes in the AP poll at this point in the year. But this is a hell of a resume. Their only loss at St. Joe's, a really close game, a really good game. I know I mention that game every week, but the win at Duquesne, the win at Rutgers, the win at Hofstra, and the win at Delaware, all away from home. Now, one of the things when you look at 4 wins like that, I always like to ask the question, which would you rather do if you could get $1 million and you can pick one of the following: play all 4 of those on the road and win all 4 of them, or play a top 25 team at home? Every coach out there would choose the top 25 team at home. So while it sort of exists in the aggregate, for them to be that consistent against teams that are that good at home, that's a hell of a profile. I just hope the committee knows how to evaluate it correctly.
Well, I think if they roll through this Ivy League season, that they're going to be in the NCAA tournament. Look at
Yeah.
the metrics, especially the resume-based metrics. Love them. An SOR of 17.
Yeah. Well, their
Uh,
resume is
um,
good, and because it's a good resume.
the only one that doesn't like them is the Torvik ranking on the predictive side. It has them at 73, but
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I think they are better than 70. I think
Oh yeah.
they're better than that. The upcoming schedule, they'll be hosting Dartmouth in their only game this week, while Cornell hosts Penn, Columbia, Yale, Brown, and Harvard.
Yeah.
Is the
And
entire schedule Monday night here.
yeah, normally we're used to seeing this is normally the last play to get in the last conference to get in the league play, but already a few games, and then on Martin Luther King Day, the 4 games there.
Four
So
games there, and then I think we get to 2 games a week starting next week after
yeah.
this.
Hmm.
Uh, Over in the Metro Atlantic, I think it's time to give a shout out to St. Peter's. They are now out
Oh,
to a 4-0
absolutely.
conference start with a pair of
Yeah.
home wins this week, but there they are in first place.
Yeah, and the Peacocks, and again, they are off to a 4-0 start, and both their wins were at home against sort of the meh part of the conference, but they've looked good. We got to mention Quinnipiac as well, but I just haven't been quite as impressed with them as I have been with St. Peter's. The team that I liked, and I think that we all liked, that's been kind of a surprise on the in the inverse, is Canisius. What the hell has happened?
Canisius, I liked also. I loved. My preseason pick of this conference was Ryder. So
Yeah.
yeah, there they are, at the bottom of the screen. They need overtime to beat Canisius for their lone conference win this weekend. So still plenty of time for all these teams to make a comeback. But
Yeah.
looking ahead here, St. Peter's this week uh, is playing at Manhattan. That's their lone game this week.
Hmm. And they should win that one.
Well, they should win. Doesn't mean they will
Yeah.
win. I'll
That
put it
doesn't
that
mean
way.
they will. Yeah.
Mid American Conference, and Griggs, we've been talking for quite a while about how disappointing this conference has been. I'm finally seeing a team that is raising
Akron.
itself above everybody else in this league that I'm paying some serious attention to. I love the way this Akron team is playing right now. They
Yeah.
just beat Bowling Green and won at Ball State this week.
Yeah. And two really nice wins, at least by max standards. And you're going to have to point out they've started to string together wins. I know it's on here. What's their current streak?
Three, just three.
Three. Okay. It's just three, but I think they've won 5 out of 6. They're starting to resemble the team that we thought they might be coming into the year, and certainly it was a fool's gold win of the worst way because of what we've already said about South Dakota State. But they're starting to look good, and their games this week. Not only are they winnable, it would be ridiculous if they lost either one of those, and then they go into the wagon wheel game after that. We'll get to that later, but I agree with you on Akron, and you start to look at them and you start to look at the rest of the league, and they could still end up with 24, 25 wins on the year.
And if you look at its overall profile, 4 losses by 3 points to Utah State, who's a tournament
Yeah,
team,
real good team. Yeah.
by 1 point to the Bonnies, by 2 points at UNLV, not
That
easy to win
UNLV,
at
yeah,
Vegas, and they
yeah,
got blown off the court by a very good Drake team.
yeah. And Drake was in that tournament. I forget which one. The UNLV game was kind of disappointing. I was so sure they were going to win that, and they didn't. But Vegas is starting to show some signs of life themselves. So this is a sneaky good Akron team, and they might be one of those teams that sort of lays in the weeds and then in the round of 64 wins a game.
Yep, and as you said, this week they're hosting Buffalo, hosting Western Michigan. They better win both these games. Although Western
Yeah,
Michigan out to a 3-0 conference start for the first time in a
I
very,
can't.
very long time.
I
I don't
didn't
think that's
think.
going to hold
Yeah,
up.
I don't either.
To actually see all three directional Michigan teams in the top half of the conference standings right now is a complete shock. But
Yeah.
again, I don't think that will hold up. They should slide down as teams like Ohio U and Ball State and Kent State start moving up here.
Yeah.
Uh, MEAC conference, where we've got NC Central, Delaware State, both out to the 2-0 conference starts, including NC Central, very impressive this week by they were at home, but they blew out Howard, and then they also beat Norfolk State, who had been our pick to win the conference for most of the year so far. So paying
That
attention to
was
NC Central now.
yeah, that was a real shocker because I mean, I thought Howard and Norfolk were the two best teams in the league. So how do you not say that NC Central is among the best teams in the league when they go out and beat not one but both of them? I didn't see that coming. I'm surprised that they did it. I don't know if that's a sign that they can hold on and finish at the top of the conference, but you sort of got to like their chances after they go out there and do that.
Yeah, they actually get the week off, as does most of the league here. Maryland Eastern
Mhm.
Shore at Howard on Saturday. Other than that, Norfolk State and Howard are hosting non-D1 games on Martin Luther King Day, and
Yeah,
the league will be off until next week. So, late week in the MEAC this week.
yeah, real light. So,
Uh,
oh
but
boy.
over in the Missouri Valley Conference,
And we have news. I guess you got it on. Drake is pulling away from Indiana State, and this will hurt the trees. I don't want to say that it's game over, but when you look at quality wins, signature wins, the kind of wins that would jump out. This would have been a really good road win. And assuming they don't come back and win it, we don't have Rocco here. He's normally one of our selection committee guessing experts. We'll see where they land in our show bracket tomorrow. But you guessed the committee some, Chad. Can Indiana State do it without this win?
Well, this was could have been another signature win.
Yeah,
Actually, it would
would
have
have been
been
quad three.
would have been a quad
Yeah,
two on the road. It may actually be a quad one road loss because it might be enough to push Drake into that top 75. They're at 88 coming into the game.
yeah,
My problem here is that it's still so early in this conference season, and this is such a tough conference. There are
very
so many
tough.
tough road trips. I don't see them basically running through with only one or two more losses the rest of the way. I see them fall 3 or 4 times. I think they're going to need to win the MVC tournament, but I might still have them inside the bubble right now, despite that, just because
Yeah.
I like what they've done so far. A signature one is really missing at the top of this profile, though.
It
Would have
kind of is. The win at
been nice,
Bradley
yeah.
is decent. But
Eh,
that's really it. I'm not a believer in Northern Iowa. That might be because I was so big on them coming into the year that I'm just sort of overreacting to the disappointment. But when you are evaluating bubble teams, be it on the committee like we do it comes up in the discussion. You know, what jumps out at you and what doesn't. And what jumps out at you about Indiana State's profile, unfortunately, is that nothing much jumps out.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that is suddenly jumping out to me on this entire conference, Griggs, and that is the Belmont Bruins.
Yes. Yeah.
Belmont crushed, it was at home, but they crushed Drake over the weekend. And Drake now beating up on Indiana State, as we just said. Uh,
Yeah.
Casey Alexander is doing an amazing job there at Belmont. All he does is win games there. And I think this Belmont team, I don't think it's a two-horse race. I think it's a three-horse race right now in this conference. And I think
I
Belmont is that
agree.
third team.
Yeah. And Murray State, pitiful out of conference, starting to come to life a little bit themselves in league play.
I don't know that I believe in anything Murray State has done yet. They just won tonight at Missouri State. Missouri State is not very good this year.
Yeah.
They won at Evansville. I think Evansville was a team we talked about because they had a bloated record early, but they were not that good
Yeah.
either. Uh,
Hmm.
Evansville at Bradley going on as we speak right now. Bradley is crushing Evansville.
Okay.
Absolutely blowing them out of the water. Uh, Belmont at Indiana State on Saturday, though, is the game of
A
the week
big game.
after
Yeah.
after tonight's game. So circle
Yeah.
that game, watch that game. Don't watch anything else that day, just that one
Right.
game.
Yeah. Just that one.
Uh, Northeast Conference, Griggs, one of our
One
probably
of
our
our
favorite
favorites.
league, perhaps even our favorite league here, uh, where Merrimack is out to the 2-0 start,
Yep.
has a top 200 net,
Yep.
coming in at 200, but they did take care of Sacred Heart this week, and Sacred Heart had been our preseason pick in the league. So,
Yeah, they
uh,
had been. Sacred Heart a little disappointing, and again, it's hard to gauge much out of conference, and it was only the second conference game, but they didn't win it. And I think coming into league play, we were all more all in on Merrimack than we were on anybody else. Our colleague Lee Delvecchio likes Central Connecticut, but that's because he's crazy. I was kind of big on Fairleigh Dickinson at one point. I'm really not now. Not at all. Really.
no,
I don't. I haven't seen anyone that I like as much as Merrimack.
I agree with you. I think Merrimack, and this year they are eligible.
Yeah.
They can go to the NCAA tournament, and I think they will be. This week they're at Lemoyne and at Central Connecticut, so those are their two games. Pick up a couple road wins perhaps this week and really establish themselves at the top of the conference.
Yeah.
Uh, Ohio Valley Conference, Morehead State, Griggs. I know it was a pair of home games. They looked
Yeah.
really good this week, though, beating Tennessee Tech and Tennessee State. And
Yeah.
I know Western Illinois is 3-0 and they've had some life. I know a couple of teams have had a little bit of life here, but at the end of the day, this Morehead State team is poised to run away with this conference.
They are, and it shows. If you watch the games, even out of conference, it looked the best. They lost their road bye games, but
By one
they
in
did.
Indiana, come on.
Yeah, by one in Indiana. Those were the only games that they did lose, though, was those 4 road bye games. And when you look at the net and you look at the overall average record and you look at the strength of record and these look at the strength of record, my God, they're 77th. Nobody else really in the top 200 except for Western Illinois, who's barely in it. There seems to be a chasm between them and the rest of the league. Does there not?
There really is now. They go on the road this week. Pair of winnable road games at Eastern Illinois and at Edwardsville, but I think the Edwardsville game's a national TV game Saturday also. If you want to take a chance to see them on your TV screen,
Yeah.
ESPNU or something like that, while there's 300 other games on. Uh, but you know, uh, they go 2-0 this week. It may be all over for this conference. Western Illinois
Yeah.
has to go to Tennessee Martin, by the way, on Thursday. What may be the battle for second place in this league here, actually.
Yeah. And Morehead State playing for seeding in the NCAA tournament, I think 14-15 is where they would end up. Maybe a 14 if they run the table.
I'll tell
Everyone
you,
else would play
yeah,
for
this
Dayton.
this is probably a 14 seed profile at this point.
Yeah.
If they hold serve here and they do what we expect them to do, conference
Yeah.
play.
But to get to the 14, and we're going to say the same about McNeese here in a minute, they can't lose more than one. They got to blow through this
You
because this
want to
is a big league.
talk about teams losing? Maybe talk
Mhm.
about teams winning, Griggs. Just a week and a half ago, among the groups of teams that had not yet picked up a D1 win was the Lafayette Leopards. They were 0-12 against D1 competition.
Yeah.
Not only are they now up to 3-12 versus D1, it included a win at BU and more notably tonight, a win at Colgate in the Patriot League here. Lafayette has gone from the bottom of the league at a joke to suddenly, could this team actually dethrone Colgate out of the Patriot League championship this year?
Well,
I I would have thought you were crazy if you'd mentioned
I
that a
would have
week and a
said
half
you were.
ago.
I will say that as surprising as what we've seen with the highly ranked teams losing to unranked teams, this was infinitely more shocking. This is probably the biggest surprise of the week, and that's not hyperbole. I just can't believe it. And to give you an idea, when you look at the two nets, look at how far apart they are. They're over 200 spots apart.
Heading into the
It won't
game,
be
there's
the
three.
biggest upset of the year,
Yeah,
but it'll be in the top five, wouldn't you think? As far in terms of how far apart the teams are at the end of the year,
yeah.
I
Well,
cannot
uh,
believe they
at
beat
the
Colgate.
at the end of the year, I don't know because this Colgate team has not been the Colgate team we've seen in past years.
Yeah,
They've lost
well,
a lot of
not
non-conference.
tonight. They weren't.
They
Good
lost a lot of
grief.
non-conference games that they would have won in prior years also, and
Yeah.
they've got a couple quad four losses in there and the like, and quad three losses. And uh, you know, I just hadn't seen anybody else in this conference that had shown me anything that made me believe that they could win the league. I may actually be a believer in this Lafayette team. Believe unbelievably from 0 and
What
12.
what is unbelievable? Like they still that is on. But well, yeah, they beat Colgate and they're 3-0. I mean, when you look at the
It,
league in a vacuum, how can you not say that? I just can't. I guess I cannot wrap my brain around this.
they host Navy and they go to Holy Cross. If they're sitting there 5-0 next week, Griggs, you're joining me on the Lafayette
Yeah,
bandwagon. I'm there. If you're a bracketologist and you choose teams based on who's in first place in the conference, you're putting Lafayette in your field this week. Go
yeah.
to Dayton. They're at the bottom of the field. They are number 68.
They're
Uh,
they're one of the lowest ranked teams that would ever get in. But if they win the league, that rankings, those metrics are going to improve.
yes, they'll improve greatly. Uh,
Yeah,
uh, Over in the SoCon, uh, Western Carolina, Sanford, UNC Greensboro, all off to undefeated starts in early conference play here. Uh,
yeah. Buckyball. I,
uh, Sanford
Are
only
you a
did was it.
believer yet? Are you a believer yet?
You know what? I'm there with you. I like this Sanford team. I mean, I don't think even though they're a top 100 net, I don't think there's any path to an at-large bid here
Oh no, I
by
mean
any means.
maybe if
But
they went out, that you're talking a crazy record if they do that. But
yeah, but
um,
I think we're set up for a great battle though because I think Western Carolina is right there. I think UNC
yeah,
Greensboro is right there. Furman, disappointing loss at Chattanooga. They got blown out on Saturday night, but I still think they get back in this. And don't don't discount Chattanooga. They always win on half court buzzer
right.
beaters in the conference tournament. So why not?
Yeah, Western Carolina, a really impressive record, and Sanford, despite really weak strengths of schedules. But it's crazy that we're talking about the Catamounts in Sanford as being at the top of the SoCon. I mean, it's bizarro world.
It really is. Western Carolina, Samford, next
And
Wednesday night. Probably going to be our under the radar game of the night.
yeah,
That could be the battle
Greensboro,
for the
yeah, Greensboro going to Sanford tomorrow. I
and
just
then
hope that
Chattanooga.
this,
Yep.
yeah, I just hope that the students and the community, I think they are, they're kind of starting to get behind this team.
Yeah,
Um,
Sanford. You've got a pair of home games. You got the Greensboro game. You got a VMI game before you go to Western Carolina. So, come on out and support this team here
yeah.
if you live down in Birmingham.
Hmm.
Southland Conference time. And McNeese State did exactly what they were required to do. They struggled a little bit on the road at Commerce, but they found a way to
Yeah.
win. They struggled a little bit at Northwestern State, but they found a way to win. And I think they're just going to keep doing that again and again and again as we pull up the schedule here throughout the rest of this conference season.
Yeah, they really did struggle against Northwestern State in particular. They finally got control in the last minute or two, but can you, and when you say this, and maybe this is true for some of the other teams in this situation, like a Morehead State, like a Colgate, or at least what we thought from Colgate, do you get to a point where you sort of get bored with your season and you're just ready for March because they are essentially playing bye games the rest of the year?
That's
And
the problem here, and they've got
yeah,
to find a way. Especially now, they should be able to get up at home this week. They've got a pair of home games, but you've got to have to make certain you're up for the game at Incarnate Word, up for the game at Corpus Christi, up for the
yeah,
games at Southeastern Louisiana and Lamar and Nichols and New Orleans as we go through the season.
yeah.
Uh,
Because this is a McNeese team. Again, I think that their ceiling's a little bit higher than Moorhead's just because of the Michigan win. I'm thinking, I don't know. And again, if they run the table, and they probably will, where are they on the seed list? Are they 12?
I think there's a real shot at the 12 line with this
Yeah.
team. If they don't lose again,
And
um,
they shouldn't. I
there,
mean,
there
they're
may be
so much better.
there may be a shot at the 11 line, and the idea being here that this team would be inside the bubble.
Yeah.
However, if they need a bid, they're going to have suffered because they host the conference tournament. They're going to suffer a very bad loss at home,
At
which may
home.
be
Yeah.
enough to knock them outside the
Knock them
bubble
out of the bubble. Yeah.
because you're going to throw a tier four loss in there.
Right. And this is a team that's just so much better than the rest of this league. And they should run the table.
They really should. We mentioned this week they're hosting Southeastern Louisiana and Lamar, and
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anything else to pay attention to in this conference. The only
Yeah.
thing to pay attention to as we go through the conference play is going to be who finishes in second place and gets the double bye into the conference semifinals opposite
Yeah.
McNeese, and probably gets to play McNeese in the championship game. But
Right.
uh, SWAC time,
Look at
and
Southern way
there
up
is
there.
there is that Southern team that they got the best net by far in this conference. They're off to the 2-0 start, a nice win over Texas Southern and over Prairie View at home to start conference play.
Hmm.
Uh, still three couple games under 500 against D1 play, but that's a lot better than anybody else in the conference.
Yeah. And I have officially decided that this may not be Grambling's year. I was pumping them up in the preseason.
Hey, they beat Prairie View this week. They're
Yeah.
1-1.
For their first D1 win.
All you got to do is make the final eight and make the SWAC tournament too. We saw it as the eight seed Texas Southern won the conference tournament last year. So
Yeah, they did.
Southern, as far as this week's schedule goes, they got the Florida road trip. That's the toughest road trip of the conference play. The FAMU and Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah, they should still be able to win both of those. Uh,
uh,
Cookman is not terrible, but yeah, they should win both of those.
uh, Over in the Sun Belt, where all teams are game to be discussed, and
Yeah,
way down there in third place, you can find James Madison, who's still getting some votes in the polls. But the
yeah.
big upset was James Madison after a very nice road win at Louisiana. Turns
Well,
around, it goes to Southern Miss and comes up short by double digits.
yeah. So talking about this start to the league, Southern Miss was our preseason or my preseason pick to win the league, and while they've been disappointing, they were still really talented. And when a talented team gets a showcase game like that, sometimes that brings them together. And for one day, they look the way that you thought that they were. this was a rough opening to the conference. Coming in the conference play, it was what are the three games that JMU might lose? That would have been two of the three I picked. They split them. This is still a good team, and I know that I'm the inverse of what I've been saying all along. Like, well, let's not overvalue them. Let's not get carried away. Well, let's not undervalue them and throw them under the bus for losing a game that really was hard to win after they won another game that was also hard to win. When you look at the rest of this schedule, until they go to App State, they might win all the rest other than the App State road game.
Yeah, they've got App State at home though coming up this week, so that is a game worth circling.
Yeah.
But four straight home games now. Very strange schedule. You see at the end of the season, they will finish conference play with four straight road games, which is not easy to do.
Yeah, the
Uh,
league office, I, that's odd that they would have a team play its last four games on the road.
uh, but again, they do have the same number of home and road conference games. It's
They
just
do, yeah.
scheduled strange. The game of the week, though, in the conference is Saturday's App State at James Madison game. I don't really know there's much else worth circling.
There isn't,
I know that
yeah.
Marshall and Troy are both out to undefeated starts. I don't expect those to last very much longer. Southern Miss at
Mhm.
Troy maybe on Saturday. Yeah, keep an eye on that
Yeah,
one.
right.
Uh, Western Athletic Conference, and it's
Yeah,
still
the
the
Lopes.
Lopes. They keep winning 11 games in a row now. Here they are, only the one loss in the season to South Carolina, and a stretch of three straight winnable home games coming up.
Yeah, and they should win all three of them. They're virtually bye games. Grand Canyon, I think they're going to get into the rankings. I don't think they're one of the 25 best teams, but I do think they'll crack the rankings. And I absolutely think they're one of the 40 best teams. They belong inside the bubble. I think they'll be inside the bubble, and I think they'll blow through their next three home games before going back out on the road to a Seattle team that's good at home. That might not be an easy game to win.
Yeah, that's the game to circle. Although for this week, do keep an eye on Saturday's Tarleton Grand Canyon game. If both Tarleton and Grand Canyon can win tomorrow night, Tarleton on the road at California Baptist, the Lopes at home against Abilene, it be a battle of teams, two teams that are undefeated in conference play. So
Yeah.
do keep an eye on that. Also remember that what you see on the screen here, we'll talk about this more as we get closer and closer to conference tournament play, may not actually be the seedings in the conference tournament. They're back using that resume-based conference seeding system that that uses Ken Palm ratings as opposed or variant of Ken Palm ratings instead of actual conference record to determine the seedings of the conference tournament. So you could see a team finish above a team and be below them in the conference tournament seedings.
Which
Very
is because they don't play a balanced conference schedule, or it's the whack. Well, of course they're doing crazy things.
One more team to discuss. It is the Chicago State Cougars, who now have picked up
Eight
wins.
D1 wins. Yeah.
Not only 81 wins, they've won at Northwestern, a team that beat Purdue. Tonight they won at Fairleigh Dickinson. What did Fairleigh Dickinson do last year's NCAA
They
tournament?
beat Purdue.
They are the best team at beating teams that beat Purdue in the entire nation, Griggs.
And I think they are, yeah. And
Uh,
that's a claim to fame. Next year they'll be joining the Northeast Conference. They've played an
that will be a
insane
conference game next year. Yep.
Yeah, they've played 23 games already. That's an insane number. They have to because it's so hard for them to get games once conference play gets into a regular set. I'm just glad that I think that this program has value, which is crazy to say because for a while they were just a joke. Um, but I think they have value. I think they'll bring something to the NEC, and I think they'll be able to be competitive. And they're trending up as a program.
They are at one game of maybe possibly a winnable road game this week at Stetson. So
Yeah.
that's a slow game. But let's move over to some mythical conferences.
All right.
The Beehive Conference to begin here, where we saw Utah Valley beat Southern Utah as a low
Yeah.
conference game. Even though Utah still has a 3-0 start, Utah Tech still three more games to go. They are still in position to steal the conference from Utah, so it's not
Yeah.
over yet. Utah State is done with conference play though, so they're not going
Yeah.
to win it.
Right. They
As
just
is
the one
Utah,
win.
but
Yeah.
no games this week though.
Yeah.
The Front Range
The
Conference.
Front Range. A
Colorado State
real
at that
mythical conference,
that
Colorado
3-0
State.
3-0 start, but it is far from over. They've got a pair of games against Air Force and a pair of games against Wyoming to go still, so
Yeah.
it's a long way to go in front
I
range
mean, they could
play.
win 7 Front Range games.
Here it is, Tuesday night, Air Force at Colorado State.
Whoo whoo!
A big
Big
game.
rivalry.
Big game. Colorado State been slipping a little bit lately, been struggling some, so they need this one.
Hmm.
How about the back range?
The back range, yes.
The
Uh,
back range, New Mexico sitting there 2-0. Arizona State's looking to play. New Mexico State got their first win of the season, beating UTEP in the first two games.
yeah.
Uh,
So,
no games this week, though. And finally, our newest conference, it is what is it, Montana, Idaho, and Eastern Washington group here, the Top Range Conference.
yeah.
Washington Wazoo is still leading the way. Both Montana and Montana State have a shot to catch them, though, here. If either one can go
Yeah.
undefeated.
And we've talked about Gonzaga's troubles. You can see that on the Hoops HD report, largely because of their lack of top range wins.
Absolutely. Huge one this week, Saturday. Eastern Washington and
Woo-hoo!
Idaho.
Yeah, that's a
Circle
big
that.
one. Yeah.
Both teams looking for their first top range victory.
Yeah.
Top 10 list time.
Okay.
This is our top 10 lists. Only two of us voted this week, so we got a lot of ties.
Oh, come on, Rocco. You couldn't even. Well, we got to be nice to Rocco. He had a rough Monday.
Honorable mentions, teams that you and I thought either did not make both of our top 10 lists, or that you and I thought were worth at least a mention in the list here. Akron, High Point, Morehead State, and
Morehead
College of
State.
Charleston.
Wow. I don't think they've ever been mentioned on this on the show ever.
They get an honorable mention leading the OVC. I voted them 11th on my list, actually.
Oh, okay.
I always supposed to vote for 10, but
Yeah.
number 10 we have Drake.
Drake with the big win tonight. Yeah.
Big win tonight. They'll move them up. That just went final over Indiana State. Pair of ties for 8th place between Weber State and Western Carolina, a SoCon team and a
Yeah.
Big Sky team.
Yeah, and Western Carolina having a really big year. So
coming in number 7, we've got
Samford, Buckyball,
moving up the list.
Moving up the list.
At number 6, we have UC Irvine, that team in the Big West that we discussed how much we like them, and a tie for 4th between Indiana State, who may drop
just
now.
Lost, it would probably drop, and we would probably have McNeese in
sole possession
of, yeah.
A tie also for 2nd between Princeton, the Tigers. They've been in 2nd place for a while now. They are now tied for 2nd, though, with welcome to the Under the Radar top 10 for the first time this season, James Madison.
Yeah, debuting at number 3. That's pretty high for their debut.
Debuting tied for 2nd, at least.
Tied for 2nd, yeah.
And the number 1 team for been quite a few weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Not a surprise. Grand Canyon, even with James Madison's loss and entry into the poll, still above them. Lope's number 1 team.
Yeah.
Griggs, any final thoughts on the show?
It was again, it was kind of weird doing it old school. We need Rocco back. I don't like talking to you.
We got done quickly, though.
Yeah, we did get done kind of quickly.
Well, on that note, then, on behalf of David Griggs, on behalf of my cat that just jumped into a box behind me there. Get out of there.
Yeah.
I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you again. Actually, we'll be back tomorrow night with a bracket rundown show. We'll talk to you then.